Welcome back. President Biden wasn't the only Democrat who linked the two infrastructure bills on Thursday. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi reportedly told her Democratic conference members there ain't no infrastructure bill without the reconciliation bill. And yes, she emphasized the word ain't on that one. That's the Democratic bill that would include many progressive priorities, including more money for education, child poverty, money to fight climate change, deal with the care economy, all paid for by tax hikes on the wealthy and on corporations. So joining me now is one of the leading progressive voices in the party. It's Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York. Congresswoman, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
So it's basically the flip question here that I asked Senator Cassidy. President Biden's, I don't know whether we call the statement a walk back or not, his clarification of his, was it a veto threat, was it not? What he said on Thursday seemed to cheer progressives. Do you think are you a little upset by the walk back that he made yesterday, or do you consider it a walk back at all?
You know, I think regardless of the president's statements, there are three key chess pieces that we need to align to pass any legislation. As we know, there's the Senate, there's the House, and there's the White House as the presidency. And so I believe that, you know, the president is more than able to take his own approach, but I believe that we also have to talk about this missing piece, which is the House. And I believe that in the House and House Democrats are very committed to making sure that, you know, in Senator Cassidy's words, that infrastructure is very centered on women. And in addition to a bridge, you need a babysitter. And it's very important that we pass a reconciliation bill and a families plan that expands child care, that lowers the cost of Medicare, that supports families in the economy.
Would you like the president to be issuing a veto threat on the bipartisan deal if the reconciliation package doesn't come to fruition?
Well, I think what's really important is that I think it's very important for the president to know that House progressives, and I believe, you know, the Democratic caucus is here to ensure that he doesn't fail. And we're here to make sure that he is successful in making sure that we do have a larger infrastructure plan. And the fact of the matter is that while we can welcome this work and welcome collaboration with Republicans, and in those areas where there is agreement, Republicans are more than welcome to join so that we can get this work on infrastructure done. But that doesn't mean that the president should be limited by Republicans, particularly when we have a House majority, we have 50 Democratic senators, and we have the White House. And I believe that we can make sure that he's successful in executing a strong agenda for working families.
Look, the Democratic majorities are precarious, right? They're very narrow in the House, extraordinarily narrow in the Senate. And when I think about the makeup of the Democratic coalition, you know, we could make a case here that maybe 50% or a slight majority is progressive, but that doesn't give you a majority votes here. How big do you think this reconciliation package can be? I mean, I've seen upwards of $3-4 trillion, but I've also heard from some more conservative Democrats in the House who think $3 trillion is too much. So is there a baseline number that you can tolerate before you come out against the deal?
Well, to me, it's not just about a price tag, right? You can have an enormous price tag that is chock full of fossil fuel giveaways and doesn't spend that money in a way that is going to solve our problem. So, and likewise, you can also have an infrastructure plan that is too small, and it's so small that it doesn't invest in any meaningful way that people can really feel a positive impact in their everyday lives. And so for me, it's not as much about a price tag, although I do think that there is a level where we do go too small. But I think it's really about what impact are we making. And I believe that it's really important that we talk about, you know, that this $3 trillion, $6 trillion, these figures that are tossed around, they're spread out over 10 years. Mm-hmm. We aren't in 8 years in some of these in some of these packages. And so when you break that down into a per year cost, it is much, much smaller. And frankly, we really need to understand that this is our one big shot, not just in terms of family, childcare, Medicare, but on climate change. The IPCC report just came out this week that showed devastating consequences if we underinvest. And so while I appreciate, for example, Senator Kennedy's emphasis on resilience, resilience does not draw down carbon. And building car infrastructure does not draw down carbon. While I appreciate the EV investment, we need to have real deal rail investment, high-speed rail investment that will help actually electrify and transition a lot of folks so that they have the option to take rail almost wherever they need to take it.
Obviously, a lot of this depends on the Senate Democrats holding together. I know where you stand on the filibuster. So I'm curious what you thought of Senator Simona's op-ed, where she made this defense of keeping the filibuster. And she wrote, would it be good for our country if we did this, basically using the getting rid of the filibuster, only to see that legislation rescinded a few years from now and replaced by a nationwide voter ID law or restrictions on voting by mail in federal elections over the objections of the minority? Look, the argument she's making is, let's say you get rid of the filibuster, you get all of this progressive change that you would like to see, and then all of a sudden the roles are reversed and everything gets rolled back. Is that a good enough defense to you for the filibuster? No.
I mean, it's essentially an argument of saying, well, why do anything at all in case something in the future may change it? Political systems all across the country, all across the world, pass legislation with majorities, and they're fine. And frankly, here's the thing, is that Democratic legislation, once enacted, is popular. Republicans have tried to gut Social Security. They've tried to reverse the ACA. They've tried to claw back on legislation that has passed by simple majorities in the Senate, and they haven't been able to because Democratic policies are popular. And once they are enacted, they are very politically difficult to undo. And so, I do not believe in the defeatism of saying we will lose in the future and this will automatically mean that anything we do now is going to be reversed, so we might as well not do anything now. Our job is to legislate. Our job is to help people. Our job is to do as much as we can. And even if that's the case, even if that is the case, wouldn't it be better to get people health care and voting rights for 3 years instead of 0 years, even if you concede the point that I don't even think is true in the first place? And so beyond that, then the argument is, okay, why 60 votes? Right. Why not stop at 70 votes? Why not need 80 votes to pass any legislation? Why defend a 60-vote filibuster when the Senate already amplifies minority power so that the 50 Democratic senators already represent millions and millions and millions more Americans than 50 Republican senators? And so I would argue that 50 Republican senators is already a built-in kind of filibuster-esque firewall.
All right. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, really appreciate you coming on, sharing your perspective with us. I wanted to get in a little bit of New York City politics, but you know what? We still got a lot of counting to do. So maybe we ought to wait for the analysis until we have the votes counted. Anyway, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.